Hello, this is my gardening channel. This is my 1930s garden. The first part is quite formal and I try to keep that quite tidy. And the second part of my garden is more of a wildlife area. So as you walk past my herb pots, which have got a little bit untidy, I've mown two paths through the grass. The first pathway goes towards a little area where you can sit with different pots and plants and flowers and trees. And the second pathway goes through to the working part of my garden, where I've got my greenhouse, my shed, lots of pots, where I grow plants and grow vegetables. So this little area has got a little bit overgrown, so I do tidy that up in one of my videos soon. But you can see it's a nice place just to sit. Lots of different plants here, a few trees. I've got a fatsia there, variegated fatsia, cardoon, a little tree, and then a mirror that I got from my husband for my birthday one year. Could do with painting my bench really. And I really love this area because there's so many insects and you can see all the bees on this lovely flowering shrub. It flowers for quite some time and the bees just seem to be drawn. I guess it's so lovely and white and it's obviously got a lot of pollen. It's a plum tree there, another variegated fatsia, which I really do like those. This area needs to be tidied up a little bit, so I've got lots of wood there that needs to be sawn up. My husband's going to do a bit of that tomorrow. A little hedgehog house, and then all the wood that needs to be cut up, and then my wood store, and water butt. And then this path then follows round. We've got a flowering raspberry, some daisies, and then I'm back to my herb section. And then this time I'm going to go on the other pathway. So you'll see on the left there I've got foxgloves, I've got giant delphiniums, I've got lupins. Lupins are one of my favourite plants. I've got some rose bushes as well. I've got a variegated privet tree. And then as I go through the archway, I've got a passiflora that's growing up the archway. And there's another artichoke and cardoon in there. And my giant delphiniums really have done extremely well this year. And I've got lots of plants here. There's a geranium there and some sage, which some insects like. They're sort of purples and pinks. Tall foxglove there. And then through the archway is my working area. So it is really untidy. There's lots of things that I could probably stack and sort out so I'd be a little bit neater. Sadly, we don't have our chickens anymore. So when we lost the last chicken, it's like nothing has changed since. It's all been there ever since. I've got a few plants on here, some that have sadly died, so I forgot to water a few of them. These massive great plants, which they're like spinach, they are. They're excellent. That's all soil that's left over from when we did some work where we had to move loads of soil. And my fig tree there, which I want to repot. And then you can see my greenhouse. So I'm going to take you into my greenhouse so you can have a look to see what I'm doing. So today I decided to put a lot of seeds out. So you'll see me doing that today. I've got hollyhocks, lupins, peas, beans, nemesia. So lots of different plants that I've put out. I've got quite a big tin of seeds, which you're going to see there on the video, and peas in a jar. And then on this side, I've got some variegated Tradescanthia. These are bunny tail grasses that belong to my daughter, and a few different plants there that I'm growing So there's echinops, a few other plants there. Now, over the last few years, sometimes my greenhouse has absolutely been jam-packed full. So the top shelf's full, the bottom shelf's full. You can hardly move without fear of knocking something over. And actually, I have it so that only I go in. Because if I go in and knock something over, that's one thing. But if somebody else goes in and knocks something over, then that's upsetting. So what I was doing here was checking for slugs, because some of the tops of my beans have been eaten. So I've got some runner beans and I've got some dwarf beans. So the runner beans are a couple of years old and I got quite a few of those come up. And then I've got dwarf beans, which we buy 2 packs of dwarf beans a week. So that's quite useful to have some from the garden. Also, I wanted to put my gladioli in. So I've got a certain type of gladioli, acid ones. And I bought them reduced and I said to my mum it was a competition. Only hers went in early and hers are all up already. But there's hope for me yet. I've got plans as to how I'm going to get mine to grow quickly. So I was just putting some soil in the bottom of the container. And then on the packaging, it says things like, or make sure the bulbs are 10 centimetres away and that sort of thing. But I like to put them in really close in a pot so you get a really nice display. And you need to make sure they're deep enough so that when they grow, they don't all flop over. They've got enough depth so that they can really get some nice root growth and really firm in the pot. So I plant all that up. I'm going to probably put that in the front of my house. And then I was getting some extra soil just to start on one of my trays. So I've got a few different trays there which I'm going to plant up. And on the right you can see some pots where the beans haven't grown. So at this point my daughter has been doing some revision for her exams. She came out to have a little chat with me and I'm planting my yellow and red lupin seeds which my mum got me for my birthday. And my sister got me some plant labels and a plant pen. So it's a few different things that I've learned over time of gardening. So often I'll think to myself, oh, I don't need to label anything up. I'll remember that they're the runner beans and they're the dwarf beans. And then a couple of weeks later, you move some pots around or you forget. So really important to make sure everything's labelled up. Also, I've learned over time, I used to use, and I did this year actually, I used some old soil, some spare soil that I've got piled up to grow my beans. Now, I know exactly what beans look like when they sprout, so I'm not going to get in a muddle with any other weeds that might come up in that soil. The main problem is that if you get even one tiny worm, the worm will just eat the seed. And I know one year I thought it was a mouse that was eating my pea seeds. I think it might have been a mouse at some point, but also I'm quite certain that they had worms or slugs in them. So it's always worth using some compost that you've bought from the garden centre. So you can see that I plant up the lupins. So I've got yellow and red. I am a little bit late for planting them, so I might not be able, they might probably not going to flower this year, but they'll be ready for next. And once they come up, I'll then prick them out and put them into pots. I then got this green tray, and then I realised the green tray has got no holes in it, so that's no good. I do have an automatic timer in my greenhouse, and if that just gets full, nothing will grow. All seeds need good levels of drainage. So I fill up a couple more trays, and I've also sown some echinops. We've had great success with kohlrabi. We like kohlrabi in winter. I like it because it's like an extra vegetable, different vegetable, and also you can roast them. They're nice to roast dinner. So I've planted some kohlrabi up as well. Now, with the lupins, they actually thrive in really poor soil. So they don't want a lot of fuss, they don't want too much water. But as I said, I have grown them in the proper compost soil because I don't want worms. that you might get in the soil to eat them, or any other insects that you might get in the soil. Also there, I'm planting up some hollyhocks. So our dear neighbour, his daughter, they've got a beautiful hollyhock in the front garden, and she gave me some hollyhock seeds. So I decided to plant a whole tray of them. Now hollyhocks come up really quickly, really easily, and once they come up, I will then again prick them out and plant them in separate pots. But I'm going to start them in the tray. So you can see all my beans have come on quite well already, and also in this video I will be setting the beans in my little vegetable plot. Now I don't have a very big vegetable plot. I know many people have allotments and have big areas to grow vegetables. My area is quite small, so that means I need to be quite choosy on what I grow. In previous years I've grown so many things, there's no space. But we like the beans, the runner beans, and also I decided to do some peas. You can see that I spend time moving things around, and when I don't have everything labelled up, I spend even longer keeping everything together, you see. So all the beans stay together and the peas stay together. But because this time I'm labelling everything up, it's going to be much easier. I can move them all around the greenhouse if needs be, and it doesn't matter. So you can see that I've got all my seeds in my tin. It's an Emma Bridgewater tin, and I find it to be absolutely perfect for seeds. It seals really nicely, keeps everything fresh and dry, and then you'll see the peas are on the little table just behind me. I put them in a glass jar. The peas are quite old, so what I tend to do with old seeds is I'll put 2 or 3 per pot. So if it doesn't come up, I'll still have another one in the pot that hopefully will come up. A couple of years ago, somebody gave me loads of old seeds and loads of it didn't grow. So I really wish I hadn't used my compost or my time on old seed. So if you've got a chance to get like seed that's reduced or someone gives it to you, my recommendation is not to bother. I do my peas because, you know, if peas don't grow in a pot, then I can just still use the soil for something else. But when you've used all of the soil and you've waited weeks to grow something that you're not used to growing, it's just kind of a bit of a waste of time. So I do read all the instructions for the seeds, but I don't always follow the instructions. So, you know, dates I think can be quite flexible. For example, we've had real rainy, cold weather. So I'm going to grow some of the plants, say, to stop trying to grow them by May. Well, it's into June, but I'm going to still sow them and see what happens. So you can see at the moment I've got 5 trays there, and I've got lots of beans growing in the corner. And then, of course, I've got more of my sort of flower plants behind me. Yesterday was quite nice weather. It wasn't that rainy and cold, and today has been lovely and warm. So hopefully the summer's going to stay with us for a little bit. So I bought some trays in there. So as I've said before, some people do wash all their trays out. I don't, but I do make sure there's no plant materials. I make sure there are no seeds, and I make sure they are clear of snails, slugs and worms, because what you don't want is creatures in the pots which are going to eat your seeds as soon as they sprout. That will cause problems. So I do quite a lot of peas. Now, peas don't tend to give a big yield. I last grew peas about 2 or 3 years ago, I think 3 years ago. And to be honest, most of them were eaten by my daughter, and they didn't come indoors for dinner. They were eaten before they even got near the dinner plate. But I was happy that she liked eating them. They were fresh out of the garden. You couldn't get fresher. No chemicals, so really classed as organic in my mind. No chemicals at all. And they all seemed to grow at the same time. So even when I staggered them, so I grew some 1 week and then I left it about 3 weeks and grew more, they still all ended up growing to the same speed and were all ready at the same time. So I have done quite a lot of plants. They do take up a lot of space, but my daughter really enjoys eating them. And yeah, I think it's nice for her to see something growing. So for vegetables, I'm going to do peas, runner beans, dwarf beans and kohlrabi. They are my main vegetables this year. And I should really do some kale. You'll see me pull some kale up because it's gone to seed. But kale lasts really well, and it lasts through really bitter weather, like kohlrabi does. So that's quite useful. It doesn't sort of, die off like beans would just die if we didn't pick them before the winter. They'd go to seed and then die. There was a bit of an accident though here, because on this video you see how I've put them all on that shelf. This morning we checked how well the watering system had gone, how it worked, and the watering had been so powerful it knocked loads of the pots off the shelf. But I said to my husband, don't worry, I can easily tip the soil back, and the peas had fallen out and I could easily just put the peas back, so it didn't matter that much. So then I changed the angle of the camera so you can see it slightly differently, and you can see I've done lots of peas. Now bearing in mind this, like I said, this is old seed, so not all of these might come up. We'll see how lucky I am, and hopefully the slugs won't get them. Me and my dad were talking about this. There's the slugs has got the tops of his runner beans and the tops of some of my runner beans, but they do tend to send out another leaf, so hopefully they'll be okay. So I label them all up. You'll then see me watering them all, and then I go outside to the outside of the greenhouse and I start digging over my little vegetable area. So I've already got onions in. You can see the tall kale which has gone to seed, but you can still eat the leaves. If I still had my chickens, I would be giving the chickens this because they'd absolutely love it, and it's quite entertaining for chickens to peck round. So I don't dig over this soil massively, but I just wanted to get the biggest weeds out. The two plants I potted up, I've got cardoons and artichokes there, which I absolutely love the silvery leaves. And then while I was then digging this bit over, my husband came and asked if I'd be able to hold the ladder for him. So I went out and held the ladder for him briefly while he was cutting the hedge. Isn't it funny how when you watch a video back, you realise how much you've actually done? I didn't realise that I'd actually done all this. I really like my new pen for writing on my new tags. It's a white pen and the black labels, which my sister got me for one of my birthday presents. I was very lucky with all the presents I got from her. She got me loads of lovely things. But you can see I've moved the peas in with the beans, but it doesn't matter because the peas are labelled. I do have problems at the moment with the soil that I buy from the shop. I just don't feel that the plants grow as well as what they used to. Of course, this is all peat-free now. And I did have some last year which actually grew weeds because obviously they had just, rotted down plants and whatever materials, and then they'd not treated it properly, so weeds ended up growing, which I was not very pleased with at all, because you might as well use soil from the garden if you're going to get weeds come up in it. I'm hoping the Nemesia come up, and my Cape gooseberry is on the far left. Now I've grown similar plants like the Chinese lanterns. I really love the Chinese lanterns, but this time I've made a point of making sure that everything's labelled up properly, because I had Chinese lanterns that you can't eat and Chinese lanterns that you can eat. So I've carefully labelled them up, and they are the edible ones. Also in the far right hand corner, you can see there's a little privet bush. Now that actually grew by mistake. I didn't have any plant labels, so I just used a bit of privet twig to mark a particular plant out. The plant died, but the privet struck. So I've grown that on, and I'm going to put that in the gap in the front garden between myself and my neighbours, where there's a bit of a gap in the hedge. So I'll do that at some point as well. That'll be a job for another day. So you can see I was holding up the kohlrabi and also Nemesia. So I have done a mix of vegetables and flowers. I do like my flowers. And in the past, I've sold some. During lockdown, I sold loads of plants. I really did. So you can see my water butt. That water butt is absolutely full, so it'd be good to use some of that water up. And you can also see when the camera moves outside, and you can see all my pots on my stands. I made a bit of a mistake though, because I left them a couple of days when we had nice weather. I left them and had forgot to water them, unfortunately, which is very unlike me. I usually do that daily. But I think it was just because the weather has been so random. Raining one day and then hot and then cold. Just really, really extreme weathers. So I'm going to be quiet for a little while now, so you can just watch a bit more of my video, and then I'll come back in a little while and explain to you what I'm doing. But hopefully you'll see a good sort of look at my greenhouse and see all the different plants that I've got. My little hanging Tradescanthia, which I'm going to transfer into a pot, with one of my macrame hangers, and I'm going to be selling locally very soon. And you'll also see where I'm using my water butt. My water butt is really full. I think it's really important to have close to your greenhouse to make life easier. And I'll come back in a minute. So you can see at this point I've put the beans in. I've used 3 canes with a little sort of topper thing that my dad gave me to keep the canes together, and then I've put a bean at the bottom of each of the canes so the beans will grow up. Really, you do need taller canes than what I've put in, but most of my canes are quite short, unfortunately. So you'll see that I've put those all in, and then I go back into the greenhouse and do a little bit more sorting. So I hope you've enjoyed a little insight into my 1930s garden. In future videos I will be talking to you about the different plants I have and how I try to plant my garden in line with nature, and also I try to plant lots of plants which are well loved by bees, birds, all insects, and of course therefore bats. And maybe one evening I'll try to catch the bats on camera for you. So I hope you've enjoyed my video. Please comment and like my video if you did enjoy it, and I would appreciate any subscribers. Thanks very much, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.